Yeah, hi Ankush. It's wonderful having you on this webinar. Welcome to you.
My pleasure, Ram. Thank you.
Thank you. And so, just for the audience, introducing Ankush Puri. He's the head of LHH. I'll talk a little bit more about the company in a while. He is on a live recording with me at this point in time, which will be played back to you at the webinar time. Ankush has had a pretty checkered career or pathway, as I would imagine. He's a mechanical engineer and he's got his MBA in marketing, and now he's working on his PhD towards um, human resources. So it's like he's crossing various boundaries and barriers and sort of cutting a unique path into leadership position. He used to work with, amongst others, with Piaggio in talent management, and now he is with LHH at ECO. LHH Lee Hex Harrison is one of the leading talent management and human resources solution providing companies in the world. It's a global company, and he heads their operations in India. One of the reasons we called Ankush here today uh, is a combination of a couple of factors. One, that he is in a unique position of someone who's keenly interested in coaching. He has done some training in coaching himself. Um, and we are working on certain possibilities in terms of his going towards his credentials and so on. And LHH does a lot of coaching itself. And so in that position, he sort of supervises in a way as a CEO of that company, a cadre of coaches, and he also selects them. And he's in a very, very good position to be able to say what is happening in the Indian industry in terms of the demand for coaching, what is being required of coaches, and perhaps compare it with what is happening globally, because LHS has its own internal certification program. I am sort of empaneled with LHH, done some assignments with them. In those processes, they use their own assessment techniques. They are very powerful. So they are, the company itself is exceptionally qualified in the space of coaching as an intervention for leadership development. And Ankush, with his experience in this company, previous experience, and the work that he is currently doing in his PhD, which is towards competencies in human resources, competency mapping, as well as leadership development, it puts him in an extremely powerful and vantage position in terms of being able to address his audience and provide certain key insights which might be of help to them. So with that, I would not like to stand between you and Ankush. And at this point in time, I would sort of invite Ankush to take the floor, as it were. And I'll just start with just this question. And as we go along, I'll be asking him a few questions which are in line with what we had earlier discussed that we are going to talk about in this session. Ankush, I mean, to start with, in terms of LHH's own vantage position in India, as well as its global stage, what do you see as a larger stage, and what is happening there within that stage in terms of coaching as an intervention, globally as well as in India? What are the trends? What do you notice, and what is likely to happen in future?
Sure. So, Ram, first of all, thank you so much for the introduction. Okay, and a good day, everyone. Pleasure meeting everyone on this platform. Yeah. So, Ram, as you mentioned, it's definitely a unique position to be in, because we do come across, in fact, even supporting or servicing the same client organization across multiple countries, right? And when we talk about this stage, there are certain factors which are similar all across, okay, and yet there are some stark differences as well that we see, okay. So when we talk about coaching, with respect to coaching, especially what makes it very different in India is, I'll put it as two factors. Okay, So one is the life cycle stage at which coaching is in India as compared to maybe a developed market or a mature market like the US. Okay, so that's one part. Okay, and the second part I'll also bring about over here is the cultural and the social nuances, right? Now, so let me first talk about the common factors. So when we talk about the common factors, uh, all of us, belonging to this fraternity are privy to the fact that the evolution of coaching actually started off with to be read as counseling support, or to be read as something which is remedial in nature. Okay, and I think the US also went through the same cycle where after some time it started evolving and people started actually seeing it as a necessity. People started seeing a lot of value in that, right? So I think it's the same cycle that India has been seeing. Okay, so we are seeing that growing awareness with respect to coaching. Okay, we are seeing people accept coaching gradually, though. Though we also talk about the growth of the coaching industry in India at a very, very fast pace. So estimated at almost around 50%. Okay, growing very, very fast, right? Yet, if we look at the differences, I think one major difference here, like I said, is going to be the maturity. At which the maturity stage at which both the markets are. So, if I talk about the Indian market, I think the first factor that makes it very, very different is the awareness levels, right? So there is, I think there needs to be a very high degree of awareness with the organizations, okay, with the people who play a major, role here. And here I'm talking about the HR fraternity. Okay, so awareness at that level. Okay, awareness even at the client level. So when I say the client here, I'm referring to the professional who's being coached. Okay, so very high degree of awareness required even there. And I think that's something that is changing in India, but changing gradually. Okay, so here we typically seeing, the way coaching is understood is very, very different. And that brings up a plethora of questions when we talk about what are the kind of difficulties, we come across. Okay, what are the kind of questions that we come across, even when we're talking about a coaching assignment. Okay, so while I talk about the awareness, maybe another factor that's complexing the entire thing is going to be during this evolution phase, there are clients who have been stung. When I say stung, they've possibly not had very good experiences. Okay. So what happens to these clients is they become all the more particular about every small little thing that's happening in the process. Okay. Now for us as coaching service providers, okay, that also means a little bit of complexity because there could be some demands which you could have never heard in the past. Okay, so we come across demands which possibly are new to this industry. So you'll have requirements from a client which could be talking about, okay, so I, with respect to the coach's background, with respect to the experience, okay, but you can't help it because the organization has been stung in the past. Okay, and they're going to be very, very particular as they move ahead, right? In terms of the maturity, there's another factor, okay, that also comes up as a stark difference is when we talk about the Indian market, we're still talking about uh, a flux. Okay, so you have some client organizations who, by virtue of being multinationals, okay, you'll find them more mature, you'll find them aligned, you'll find them understanding what coaching is. Okay, and here you have a mix. So you have other organizations who are aspiring to bring in these new practices or adapt to these new practices. Okay, and they themselves may not actually know what do they need. Okay, so if I talk about the US, you may also come across people who are very clear in terms of what are they asking for. So when it comes to coaching, are they asking about developmental coaching? Are they talking about targeted content coaching? Okay. Whereas if I talk about a market like India, there would be a blanket term used, right? Saying that there is a need for coaching. Okay. And possibly it's here that we need to play an important role in terms of helping the client organization define what coaching is required. What is the need actually? Okay. So that's another stark difference,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
If I talk about a third area,
Mhm.
which again maybe I'll also say would be the way forward in India, and I'm sure India will start seeing this
Yeah,
very soon.
Ankush, if you would, yeah, permit me, before we move into the way forward, I just have a couple of
Sure.
questions based on what you said. Actually,
Yes, sir.
2 points which I think are extremely relevant to people who may be viewing this webinar. The first is, while you said the growth is phenomenal, 50%, honestly, even to me, it's surprising, and it's fantastic if it's happening, and it's
Right.
good news for most of us as coaches. And at the same time, you talked about, which is very, very right, the moving from the remedial view of coaching to the developmental view of coaching and whatever lies as part of the larger leadership development process. Now, what is it about the awareness within the mind of the sponsors in terms of the HR, L&D managers, etc., and the clients who are the professional executives being done? Uh, what's your own opinion, and what may need to happen, and what is possibly happening now?
So, Ram, I'll put it okay. One is what I say, if we talk about the sponsors and the way the sponsors understand the term coaching, okay, the ways they see coaching fitting in as a solution, okay, and to add to that, okay, is also the definition of who is a good coach. Okay, now both go hand in hand, right? So as long as the understanding of coaching is not defined, or if I may use the word evolved, okay, so is the lack of clarity, okay, or clarity on the coach that you're actually looking out for. Okay, and both are going hand in hand. So when the moment we say that the need for coaching is not clear, okay, what immediately flows out of that is you are not even clear about who would be a good coach then. Okay, and this I think is what is making it more complex currently, because then what happens is the choice of coach or the selection of coach, okay, would be made on a set of wrong parameters. Okay, and if the selection is wrong, obviously, and so the outcome is not going to be aligned to possibly what is your objective. Okay, and in case that happens, right, you're once again talking about the stung sponsor.
Okay.
Okay, I mean,
Yeah. So before we come to the stung sponsor, the other question that I have,
sure,
before we come to that, it's very interesting from what you said. If you are able to mention anonymously some specifics, what are the kind in general of the sponsor requirements in the company and the client sponsor expectations of coaches as good coaches that are coming up in
right,
front of you as we speak today?
sure. So, Ram, I think here there's also, possibly if I may use the word playing safe, okay, on the sponsor's part, or possibly the most obvious fitment. Okay, so I'll just use an example here. Okay, so let's say you're talking about a CXO minus one level, right? You're talking about supporting the client on a set of leadership competencies. Okay, while the individual is operating in the financial market domain. Okay, so the organization is in the financial, so it's part of the financial industry. Okay, we're talking about CXO minus one level, right? Now, we do understand when you're talking about leadership competencies, okay, managing a business at that particular level, okay, would possibly be very, very different, okay, from managing operations of the business. Okay. Now, here is where I talk about the awareness. Here is where I talk about the belief and the value of the sponsor. Okay. In terms of playing a role in terms of, understanding what is the requirement, what is it that we're trying to address, okay, and hence defining the need of a coach, or hence defining the coach profile. Okay, so who would be the best fit here? Okay, now it's not only about the coach credentials and the background experience matching. So we do come across clients who are insistent that the coach should come in from the same functional domain. Okay, which may not always be the right case, but again, as I said earlier, if you're talking about stunt sponsors, okay, they would be very rigid about that factor. I would say it takes a lot to educate them and bring them out of that particular evaluation parameter. So taking them actually to the objective of the coaching, helping them identify that this is what we're looking at. Okay, so uh, possibly it's not the background that's making a difference, or the exposure to the same industry domain is not making a difference at that particular level. It could be some other factors. Okay, coming to the other factors, if I look at the value that a coach brings to the table here, okay, or possibly what the sponsor needs to look at, okay, primarily it's going to be matching, uh, or I think even before that, it's going to be understanding the credentials, understanding the techniques, and understanding the prior experience of the coach in terms of what kind of assignments has the coach handled. Okay, where has he been able to make a difference, right? After that, there's another factor which plays a very important role, is going to be the matching of the learning styles. Okay, which is basically between the coach and the client, because we be also talking about two different people, right? And third, of course, as all of us know, I'm saying there is the hygiene factor around, terms of ethics, right? What level of exposure to business are you talking about? Okay, are we uh, are we looking at the coach's experience of handling such cases in the past, and in what degree of complexity? Okay, so
Okay. Okay.
we yeah.
So I mean, I just want to dig a little deeper into this, Ankush, because some of the things that you are saying, uh, there are certain things, like for example, in terms of the biodata, which domain they have worked in, how many years, which companies, etc. Those are very easily verifiable. Yeah. Now, when you come to situations like learning styles and all that, it's going to be extremely difficult to verify. Even if you have a chemistry
Sure,
meeting, that's not going to come out till such
sure,
time as they are stung, as you put it very rightly. And in between something, the coach says, yeah, I have handled these cases. The person is going through some trauma, the person is behaviorally aggressive, etc., etc. The coach may say, oh yeah, sure, I don't have a problem. I can handle that, etc. Now, so there are, let's say, there are levels of verifiable facts, easily
right,
verifiable facts, perhaps
yeah,
non-verifiable till it happens, and somewhere
true,
much more difficult. And therefore, to what extent would you, as LHH, before you select a coach, verify? Um, because again, coach-client confidence and all that kind of a stuff will come into picture. So, how will you verify what the client says is true, what the coach says is true in terms of who he has coached and how successful he has been or she has
sure,
been. Yeah.
sure. So Ram, if I may talk about the coach, when we're talking about experiences of the coach, okay, and when we're discussing experiences of the coach, right? Well, we talk about a series of interactions. Okay, so it was never based on one particular interaction with the coach. Okay, it would be multiple points of interaction that we have with the coach. Okay, each of them trying to delve into or understand, uh, how is the coach approaching his work. Okay, a particular assignment, right? His belief in what works the best for him, right? His past experiences. So, like you said, part of that could be verifiable, part of that may not be verifiable. Okay. So there could be references to some extent, there could be an insight, okay, into the coaching style, when you spend some time with the coach and understand his experiences of dealing with people, okay, you also tend to understand the approach. So when you're talking about how difficult the assignments have been in the past, at what particular level, okay, what were the objectives and what was achieved, right? Or when you're talking about what are the obstacles that a coach experienced, okay, you tend to come across you tend to collect some insights on the way in terms of how the coach has been functioning, what are the coach's uh, core strengths, what has he been using, okay, and that's possibly what's giving an insight into the skills or the value that a coach brings to the table.
Hmm. Yeah. Having said that, yeah, okay. I know it is difficult. So essentially, what you're saying is it's a bit of a subjective element, and then people in your company, including perhaps you, would seriously interview a coach, especially if the coach is for a leadership position, and then make sure that whatever can be verified, and then
Sure.
would go with that. Okay, now going to the other side, in terms of, like you said, people have been stung, and you mentioned specifically about the domain, that because the people, maybe it's a wrong assumption, but because that person came from the different domain, and therefore the person was not suitable. So to what extent, in terms of ranking, let us say, if you were to put factors like the domain from which they come, the years of work experience that they have had, the years of coaching experience that they have had, the kind of coaching experiences that they have had, and the credentials like ICF or whatever,
Sure.
reputed. So, how would you, let's say, these five parameters that we are taking, how would you rank them, or these five parameters, for instance?
Okay. So I think, Ram, even looking at the way our clients come across, I think credentialing definitely becomes a hygiene factor today. So credentialing is important, right? And I think the discussion starts off from there, because everybody would like to first say that, okay, let's meet the hygiene factors. Okay, so that's something like a hygiene. Okay, moving ahead from there, I'll put it as so the years of experience, right, and the kind of assignments, okay, the coach has handled, okay, plays a very important role again, but I'll say uh, subject to the requirement, right? We've also seen a change. So I'm just digressing for a minute. Okay, we've also seen a change where I'll not say something which is prevalent today, or we see it a lot, okay, but I think that's indicative of a future trend, okay, where we're seeing organizations also supporting professionals who are younger, okay, and hence possibly also looking at not the age factor as a constraint around it. So they've started moving towards the skills of a coach. Okay, now that's a slight drift that we're seeing as we move ahead. Okay, and so from that perspective, credentialing again very important. Okay, um, I think the evaluation of the coach in terms of the experience that the coach has handled, or had in the past, in terms of what kind of coaching situations, right, and the outcomes of those particular situations. Okay, so that's again one important factor. The other factor, if I'd like to talk about, is uh, you know the ability of the coach. Okay, I think the business environment, or exposure to the same domain, okay, is something that the clients lay a lot of importance to. Okay, so we still say that prevalent, because I think there's a high degree of comfort saying that, if there's exposure to the same functional domain, okay, very high degree of comfort there. And I think even as an organization, I'd like to say that it takes us a lot of effort to, help the client understand, define the need as crisply as possible, and then bring in a point saying that you could still see a set of more coaches fitting in. If you are to be a little bit flexible on this and actually helping them realize that that may not be the case always. But from the client perspective, I think if you ask me to rate it on a scale of 1:5, I think the functional domain comes in as the biggest confidence factor. Okay, which would be somewhere around 4 on a scale of 1 to 5. Okay, possibly credentialing, as I said, is a hygiene factor. So I'll put it as almost something like a 5 on 5. Okay, and if you talk about the experience of the coach, once again, maybe a 4 on 5, because it speaks about the value that the coaches bring to the table.
Okay, absolutely. I mean, what you're saying, especially for this audience, which is primarily of coaches aspiring to be coaches, etc., it's going to be very good news that credentialing, which is what I see over the last 5 years, 6 years that I've been in this business, that has become more and more important. And even today, I would say 80% of people who call themselves coaches have no professional training or credentials. So that makes a lot of, I mean, at least for us to hear, it's very good. Whether it's good for larger humanity or not is a different issue. And I see the same thing that is happening, that many coaches have turned around and asked me, coaching, you tell us, you teach us that it's agnostic to the discipline, etc. But why do companies insist on it? So unfortunately, there's a gap between what the companies want. If it's a banking and finance sector, they would like someone from that sector. It's a technology from the technology sector. Internationally, and it's not just India. This is what I find internationally as well. So pretty much that's a mapping. I would completely agree with you. So in terms of today, let's say between the selection of coaches and satisfaction of the clients in India, based on your own personal experiences, what would you say are challenges now?
So, Ram, I think primary challenge today is the perception of coaching. Okay, and I think we spoke about the solution being spreading more awareness about coaching, what coaching is and what coaching is not. Okay, and this, along with this perception, what also comes in is, so I'll also put it as the other factor which is a challenge is helping educate the sponsor organizations. Okay, even in terms of defining the coaching need, right, for an individual, and defining who a good coach is. Okay, as all of us know, if you're talking about coaching as an industry, okay, you'll still talk about very low entry barriers. Okay, so like you said, 80% of the coaches would still come in without credentialing. Okay, without actually possibly even having a framework around what coaching is. Okay, and if I talk about the other challenge, okay, would be in terms of, once again, the age factor. Okay, so I was reading a report, okay, which was actually talking about almost around 40%, okay, of the clients, that is professionals who undergo coaching, being only between the age group of 35 to 45. Okay, and it tapers off both ways. So less than 35, it's tapering off. More than 45, again, it's tapering off. Okay, which means, again, there's a mindset that organizations have in terms of where does coaching come into play. Okay, and there's this perception formed around coaching only for certain people at certain level. Okay, uh, could be it's coming out of the cost associated with coaching. Could be, right, or it's coming out of purely out of the mindset in terms of where does coaching fit. Okay, but that's another impediment that we have, that we come across in the country. Okay, related to the same point, right, I'll also put it as the application of coaching, right, or when we talk about it's not necessary it's only for an individual. Okay, how often do we come across the requirement for team coaching? Okay, which would still be very, very less. I think very few organizations in India. okay, who are looking at team coaching as a practice. Okay, so that's another impediment that I'm talking about. So looking at where does coaching come into play. Okay, and of course, like I mentioned earlier, so you also have another impediment, which is going to be the stung clients. Okay, who are very rigid in their approach. Okay, so at times there could be unreasonable demands. At times there could be uh, uh, very lengthy gestation period with such clients, but you need to handle them carefully, and you really need to support them en route before they're able to make a good decision.
If you permit me, let me ask a slightly sensitive
Sure.
question. When the client has been stung by the coach, so what do you do with a coach? Do you sort of take them off your panel? And what do you do with a client to pacify them
Uh, okay, Ram. All right.
then?
All right. Ram, I think, if we've been talking about the definition of, identifying the right coach, okay, I think it's also being equally fair to the coach and to the client, both ways. Okay, it's very important to understand if they were stung, where did the entire process go off track? Okay, so did it go off track primarily because of was it the selection of the coach? Okay, was it because there was not enough work done before the coaching journey was undertaken? Okay, so no clear definitions, no objective set. Okay, or no tangible mechanisms put around the entire journey, right? Or was it because a derailment during the course of the journey? Okay, so here what I mean to say is also to do with the readiness of the client. Okay, that is the professional who's undergoing coaching, right? So it's very important to identify what went off track. Okay, and if it's kind of throwing pointers to a specific area, okay, then of course it calls for corrective measures in terms of whatever are justified.
Yeah, I'm truly glad that you said that because yes, there could be cases where the coach may be at fault. There could be cases where the coach is not at fault. So how do you
Right.
find that out and make into a larger development process?
Right.
So coming to, like you mentioned about team coaching, which is very interesting that I was going to ask you that question. Do you see at all a trend moving towards team? The answer you're saying is no, not yet. And you sort of indicated that it would be a good thing if it happened. And
Right.
are there other trends that, are there any trends that you're noticing? Are you noticing that people are more willing to be virtually coached rather than face to face and those kind of things? Gender, for example, that they are willing to accept different genders. You mentioned that the sweet spot for the clients is 35 to 45. Similarly, is there a sweet spot for the coaches? Some of those kind of
True.
things. Yeah.
True. True. So yeah, Ram, what we see is like you mentioned, team coaching is where we are seeing some kind of I'll say it's like a silver lining. Okay, so we do see organizations thinking of, right, uh, not only team coaching, group coaching as well. Okay, now that's a silver lining. Okay, that's a very nice thing that we see, but very few organizations. Okay, um, like you mentioned, we do see clients being very open, or at least increasing comfort level with virtual coaching. Okay, we do see that increase over a period of time. We are seeing kind of increasing acceptance of the same. Okay, uh, the same applies even to the gender. Okay, so we're seeing that openness, and we're seeing that increasing degree of comfort, right? And I think it still needs to go up, but we are seeing a shift over there. Okay, another area that I'd also like to mention is I think what we are also hearing, right? So I'll still not put it as a lot of clients saying that, but in my opinion, I think that's something that will happen very soon. Okay, when we're talking about the evaluation of coaches profile, okay, or the aptness of a coach's profile to a particular situation or an assignment, okay, we are also seeing this openness to specialization. Okay, so what I mean to say over here is, I did come across a few clients, okay, who were very open to the fact that if they're talking about coaching a set of mid-level managers, okay, they're also open to a coach who only possibly has catered to mid-level managers in the past. So not necessarily senior managers, okay, which I'll say was, possibly an obvious requirement earlier. Okay, so that's where I said I'm hearing clients, some of them speak a different language, and I think this will grow strong as we move ahead. Okay, so clients would be open to coaches who specialize at a particular level, possibly even coaches who specialize, only in specific domains, because I think that's where things will start moving into. I'm not too sure, but I'm just saying out of what I'm hearing. And this is my understanding that there might be a shift towards more and more of specialization. So it could be age groups, it could be domain, it could be levels, right? It could be areas like somebody who only focuses on anger and stress management, somebody who only focuses on business relevant issues,
Yeah.
right?
Very interesting. Really, very interesting. So I just have, I mean, two questions before we wrap up the session. The first one is, I mean, this would be of interest to people, especially for them to know what's in stock. What is your median sweet spot in terms of, let's say, length of assignment? How many sessions would it be? How many hours in a session, or hour minutes in a session? And if you are open to talking about it, what would be the sweet spot remuneration per hour today? I know if you don't want to talk about it, I would understand. But the first two,
Right.
I think, are not sensitive.
Thank you so much, Ram.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot
yeah,
for saving me from that.
yeah,
Okay. So I'll talk about the uh, first two areas. I think, and here is where again I'll bring out a cultural difference,
mm-hmm,
right? So when we talk about the number of sessions,
mm-hmm,
okay, I think to a very large extent, even in the Indian market, we've seen clients being comfortable with, let's say, you're talking about two interactions spread over a period of month. Though again, I'll say no hard and fast rule around that. That would vary from assignment to assignment, depending on what it may be. But uh, I think that's where I'll see the sweet spot. Okay, in terms of the duration of the session, I think. From the coach's perspective, okay, we'll have a different sweet spot, and from the client's perspective, we have a different sweet spot. So that's what our experience tells us. So from the coach's perspective, I'll say, in our experience, the sweet spot has been um 45 minutes, okay, to 1 hour, 60 minutes, okay. From the client's perspective, and we've often heard this feedback even from our own coaches saying that, uh, the session went on because my uh, client was so engrossed in the session and wanted some more time. Okay, so we're almost looking at something like anywhere between 90 minutes to 120 minutes. Okay, we've also had a feedback from the coaches saying that somewhere we had to actually uh, step in and also remind them about the particular time frame that we have. Okay,
yeah,
and this I don't know how many of us share that, but that's another area where I see a cultural difference.
yeah.
Okay, so when we come across clients in India who are actually seeing value in the discussions, okay, you do see a tendency, or a little bit of a pressure on the coach in terms of managing the time.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Because, yeah, typically I would allow 90 minutes for Indian clients because
Right.
generally they are more comfortable in
Absolutely.
terms of talk about it, whereas the Western clients tend to be a little bit more. But even there, I found 75 minutes is a better average than keeping it at 45 or 60. And in terms of the total number of sessions, when you said 2 sessions per month, would it be 6 sessions overall or 12 sessions, or would it just be 2 sessions? How do you think it is?
Okay, Ram, I think to a very large extent, that would also depend on what is the need that we're catering to,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and possibly the stage at which the client is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how much of a time is actually required to support the client? So
Mm-hmm.
I would rather not define it in terms of the number of sessions,
Mm-hmm.
okay, because that would vary.
Okay. Okay. Fine. So the last question that I really have is that if you have some advice, now you mentioned that virtual conversations are more accepted now.
Right.
The gender differences, age differences, they're not too high. Given all the strengths that Indian coaches have, the professionally credentialed coaches have, therefore they have an international reputation or international credential, etc. So, what would be the advice if you look at the larger LHH across the world that somebody impanels with you in India in order for them to be considered for global assignments? What would be a few tips, 2 or 3 tips that you could give them?
Sure. So I think one of the most important factors that I'd like to mention over here is, and I'm um, I'm also relating this, to the overall trend that we see. And as I mentioned sometime back, the low entry barriers. Okay, so what is also typically happening is, when we talk about, and there I'm coming to a very, maybe I'll say a very sensitive area. Okay, is when we talk about low entry barriers, we know that it invites a lot of people who are going to be present. They're going to try out. Okay, it's very important when we talk about a credentialed coach. I think initially it's very, very important to establish a set of good clients and testimonials in terms of proven assignments. Okay, and from that perspective, I'll also like to mention that when we talk about the Indian market today, it's definitely in a flux state. Okay, uh, so you're talking about a market which is growing. You're talking about a demand which is increasing. Okay, and you're talking about low entry barriers, so which is also inviting a lot of professionals at the same time. Okay, so for the people who are credentialed and for the people who actually are able to bring in a lot of value, okay, it's very important to get in some good assignments first. Okay, and when it comes to coaching, I think the way you price, the way you place your remuneration, okay, where you see yourself, I think initially that should not be the factor. Okay, that should stop you from picking up good assignments. Okay, so it should be picking up good assignments, right? So establish your stature, establish your credential in terms of proven assignments, case studies in the market. Okay, and then move on to a level where you can actually even command a price. Okay, so as an organization who's between the buyer and the service provider, I'll also put it as you know on one hand we see good talent available, okay, but we also see that there is a barrier. We're not able to kind of uh, take them, right, speak to clients, because the equations are very different. You're still talking about somebody who wants the service but is not able to assign that kind of a value to the service. Okay, and very initial in the conversation, and so we see it falling apart. Okay, so I'll just like to mention that that's one of the areas. Okay,
Can you elaborate on that? When you say, is it the coach who's not able to assign a value to his coaching value, or the client is not able to perceive it? What is that value you're talking about?
yeah. So when I say the value here, what I'm referring to is so when you're talking about a particular pricing point.
Yeah.
Okay, now you're talking about let's say organizations in India, right? So again, here I like to talk about the larger bracket where I'm still saying awareness needs to go up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, uh, organizations still see a high degree, uh, or I'll say they'll still see that they're paying very high. Okay, when they're actually bringing in the services of a coach,
Mm-hmm.
right? That perception is very, very strong. So we're paying very, very high.
Mm.
Okay. Now I'm also saying on behalf of the entire fraternity that today I say if we are to bring in coaching and we need to make coaching more acceptable, okay, it's also
Mm.
important that organizations taste success very soon with coaching,
So,
right?
so,
Once,
so, yeah.
yeah.
So what you're really hinting at is, pardon my interruption, is
Sure.
that the coaches who are really wanting to make a name for themselves, who may not as yet have a huge, let's say, experiential kind of resume,
Right.
would need to be sensitive about the price at which
Absolutely.
putting them.
Absolutely, Ram.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And here, this works, very differently. So I also understand from the perspective of coaches who are just entering. Okay, they would definitely be worried about, how do I get positioned?
Hmm.
Okay, but the fact is, even if you have your credentials built up,
Hmm.
okay, possibly every assignment is a different assignment for you. Okay, so you can gradually step up, right? But the idea is to pick up those good assignments initially so you're able to add up to your credentials.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. And yeah, what might happen is certainly at the end of the interview, when it goes live, I'm going to put down your email ID, and you might get deluged with a lot of coaches saying, "Okay, we are going to do it at whatever price you mention it is, so it is all right." So this is what you said, Ankush. So then the ball is in your court. Thanks a lot, Ankush. Absolutely,
Sure.
brilliantly. So
Thank you
the
so
last
much.
question before I leave you is something. Okay,
Yeah,
we can discuss it offline later. Is
sure.
it when do I see you as a credential PCC coach?
Ram, you really, really need to guide me. I'm all for it. Okay. So maybe, I think the last time you mentioned that I need to just go ahead with a couple of steps,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And I think it's just my schedule that keeps me moving from, shuttling between cities and sometimes countries.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I just need to, take hold of my schedule and pull out some time for myself.
Sure.
I'll
Anyway,
do that very
yeah.
soon, Ram.
No, no, we'll talk about it offline now after I
Yeah.
switch off the
Sure.
recording mode.
All right.
Yeah, Ankush, thank you very, very much. And I mean, you can't imagine how useful this conversation would be to people who are going to listen to this. And secondly, on that particular day when we are going to do that, I'll inform you sufficiently in advance so that if you're able
Sure.
to join us live, we can either decide to play this recording or even for you to appear live and redo this interview with additional knowledge at that point in time. Thank
Sure.
you once again. Very,
Sure,
very
Ram. My pleasure.
yeah,
I'm glad if I could be of any help. Thank you so much, Ram.
right. So
Thanks a lot.
I'll stop the recording now. Thank you very much
Sure.
indeed.